The United States federal prison system has 157,000 inmates in its custody and locks up some of the most dangerous and high-profile criminals in the world. Serial killers and terrorists are among those inside its 122 prisons, which includes supermax penitentiaries and minimum security camps. We will take you inside the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and inside its women's prisons, there is an alarming pattern of abuse.
Join us on this gripping expedition into the minds of the most feared women behind bars.
I'm under a $250,000 bond, which sucks.
Like my records.
In 2009, a female prison officer was assigned to the self-harm unit to investigate a disturbing incident regarding an inmate. Assigned to the self-harm unit, she embarked on a mission to investigate a particularly disturbing incident involving none other than the notorious Rebecca Butterfield. Now let me tell you, Butterfield wasn't just any inmate. She was like the Pablo Escobar of Silverwater Women's Correctional Center in Sydney. Her prison behavior record read like a crime novel, spanning dozens of pages. Among the inmates, she was the undisputed queen of chaos, earning the title of the most dangerous inmate in the joint. Now if you flip through the pages of Corrective Services NSW file on Butterfield, brace yourself. There were at least 39 alerts, each a shocking episode in her turbulent history. From stabbing an officer in the face to tossing boiling water at two others, it is safe to say that Butterfield is quite violent. Butterfield, hailing from a respectable family in a small country town, her life took an unexpected detour into the murky waters of the prison system back in 2000. Starting with minor infractions, she soon found herself dancing on the darker side of the law, engaging in malicious damage and drug-related offenses on the town's main street. Things took a nastier turn when Butterfield's violent tendencies reached new heights. During episodes of self-harm, a well-meaning neighbor became an unwitting target of her fury, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. The prison psychiatrist diagnosed severe personality disorders simmering beneath Butterfield's rage and self-loathing. Fast forward to May 7, 2003, inside the MU Plains Correctional Center for Women in Western Sydney. This was the day Butterfield flew past any remaining boundaries. Her victim this time was Blue Slim Ward, a 30-year-old Filipina businesswoman nearing the end of her sentence for fraud. Armed with a knife cunningly acquired from the day room, Butterfield stabbed Ward 33 times from behind, piercing her ribs and heart. Convicted of manslaughter, Butterfield's journey took a dark turn when she was moved from the calm Emu Plains to the fortress-like Mulawa Women's Prison near Sydney's Olympic Park. Did you know that even a tiny piece of plastic became a potential danger in Butterfield's hands? At Mulawa, prison officers faced the challenging task of keeping her away from sharp objects. Her violent tendencies had already caused havoc at Emu Plains, and the prison corridors buzzed with the urgency to protect both inmates and officers from the storm within Butterfield. On 4 occasions, she severely cut her own throat, requiring hospitalization, and she set her cell on fire while banging her head against the wall. In 2009, a senior officer found Butterfield with a brutally fractured skull, the result of repeatedly smashing her head against the wall. The experienced officer couldn't help but be moved to tears, witnessing the depths of human torment. Sometime in 2019, the NSW Supreme Court deemed Butterfield, then 41 years old, too dangerous to be released upon completion of her manslaughter sentence. She is believed to still be held at Silverwater Women's Prison, but was due for release in late 2020. In 2020, Butterfield got hit with denial number 3 for her Freedom Card. The Nesodoikade government came out swinging in the Supreme Court, arguing that her violent rampage since January of that year was reason enough to keep her behind bars until at least 2023. Motherhood brings immense joy through the strong bond formed between a mother and her child, starting from conception. This special connection goes beyond words and offers chances for personal growth, but in Mary Beth's case, her self-discovery will blow your mind. Mary Beth Tinning, born on September 11, 1942, in Duansburg, New York, earned a dark reputation for taking the lives she brought into this world. From waiting tables to driving a school bus, she had her share of low-status jobs until landing a role as a nurse's aide at Ellis Hospital in Schenectady. In 1965, she tied the knot with Joe Tinning and went on to become a mother to 9 kids from 1967 to 1985. However, tragedy befell this family when each of her children left this world under suspicious circumstances. Mary Beth initially claimed her kids died from accidents or natural causes. It was a heartbreaking tale that turned out to be a cover for something much darker. Under intense scrutiny, she confessed to suffocating at least 4 of her own children. Imagine the shock that swept through the community. In the same year, she was convicted of second-degree extermination in connection with the death of her 9th child, Tammy Lynn. A 4-month-old infant who became the center of a tragedy that sent Mary Beth to a 20-year life imprisonment sentence. Mary Beth admitted to suffocating her baby, but she never spilled the beans on why. What could drive a mother to such a cruel act? Speculations flew, suggesting she might have Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a disorder where people seek attention by hurting others. But hey, that's just a guess. Mary Beth is still serving her time in the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women, and her path has been marked by repeated denials of her request for release. The story of her imprisonment has not only captured the public's interest, but also sparked a general feeling of unease. The tragic circumstances surrounding her wrongdoing are the source of this discomfort, which combines with other strong feelings to create a complicated tapestry of opinions and feelings that heighten the focus surrounding her case. Joanna Dennehy, born on August 25, 1982, in St. Albans, Hertfordshire, she would later be infamous for her involvement in a series of brutal crimes. Now, when you hear about her, you might find yourself asking, where the hell did her humanity go? Brace yourselves, because it's not your typical bedtime story, that's for sure. In the early chapters of Dennehy's life, details are sparse, but one thing is clear. She had a rough start, dabbling in a life of crime during her teenage years. Now let's fast forward to 2013, a year that marked a dark turn in her story. Dennehy unleashed a spree of seemingly random violence, with a preference for targeting men. She'd lure them to quiet spots before launching her attacks. Talk about a sinister twist. Łukasz Slabaszewski and John Chapman were her first 2 unfortunate victims. It was reported that she attacked each of them several times before dumping their bodies in a ditch close to Peterborough, Cambridgeshire. She knew Lucas was her buddy and John her lover. Well, ain't that a messed up story? I mean, attacking friends and lovers? That's some twisted Bonnie and Clyde fantasy gone way off the rails. What was she thinking? So, she just chucked their bodies in a ditch like it's no big deal. Classy move, right? I bet Peterborough wasn't expecting that kind of drama. March 2013 must have been a real head-scratcher for them. Her landlord, Kevin Lee, was the 3rd victim of Dennehy's murders. She took Lee's life in his room, and his body was later discovered inside a wheelie bin on a neighboring property. What was going on in Dennehy's head? No valid motive? No, she just wanted to play Bonnie and Clyde and 9 guys. That's some serious disregard for human life. After her dark deeds, she took off running across the country with a guy named Gary Stretch, whose real name is Gary Richards. Together, they scared a whole bunch of people, and nobody knew who might be their next victim or where it would happen. The whole country was on edge, waiting to see what would happen next. A nationwide manhunt was immediately put into action as the police worked tirelessly to bring them to justice. Finally, on April 2, 2013, in a little town called Hereford, a regular person noticed something and called the police. That call led to Dennehy and Gary Stretch getting caught. The scary part of the story was over, thanks to an everyday hero stepping up. Dennehy showed a concerning degree of detachment from the gravity of her actions when she pleaded guilty to 3 cases and 2 attempted cases during her trial at the Old Bailey, shocking the court with her complete lack of remorse for her actions. Ultimately, in February 2014, Dennehy was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order, meaning she would have to spend the rest of her life behind bars with no chance of parole. And there you have it, folks. Rebecca Butterfield, dubbed the Pablo Escobar of Silverwater Women's Correctional Center, is notorious for violent acts, including a fatal stabbing. Mary Beth Tinning, a mother convicted of suffocating her 9 children, remains in prison, with speculations about Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Joanna Dennehy, a British murderer, committed random violence, displaying a shocking lack of remorse. She received a life sentence with no chance of parole.
Imagine a world where the laws of the road are broken, where the rumbling of engines fills the night, and danger waits around every corner. Prepare for an adrenaline-fueled ride of the most dangerous female Hells Angels. They are women who defy preconceptions, rewriting the norms of rebellion. Number 1. Sandy the Serpent Sullivan. Even the fiercest outlaw motorcycle riders shudder at her name. Sandy the Serpent Sullivan is a clever, cruel lady. Sandy grew up in the gritty streets of Los Angeles. Her father, a former Hells Angel, told her about brotherhood, rebellion, and the motorcycle club's fame. She listened in awe as a child, enchanted by freedom on the open road. She wanted respect, dread, and independence like the Hells Angels. Sandy defiantly joined the renowned motorcycle club at 18. She had to prove herself, often outperforming men. Her moniker, the Serpent, was earned by her fast and surprising blows. Sandy was able to read people and exploit their flaws and desires. She was a superb manipulator with caustic remarks. Her exploits included a fierce territorial dispute with the Mongols. Sandy used her wits to defuse the situation without firing a shot. She used Mongol infighting to win the disputed territory for the Hells Angels. Sandy's reign as the Serpent Sullivan was controversial. Though unproven, she was accused of assault, intimidation, and murder. She dodged her pursuers like a serpent. Her narrative shows how smart and brutal illegal motorbike riders are. Number 2. Rosie Road Rage Ramirez. Originally from Arizona's burned landscapes, Rosie Road Rage Ramirez boldly navigated the brutal world of outlaw motorcycle groups. Road Rage's fierce passion and reckless bravery made her one of the Hells Angels' most feared figures. A problematic youth, she was always more at home on the back of a bike than in a classroom. In a male-dominated workplace, Rosalie's angelic journey was difficult. Rosie was tough and worked twice as hard to prove herself. She overcame every challenge with courage, perseverance, and a violent streak that left her opponents quaking. Rosie was a fierce fighter. Her fists weren't the only thing that hurt rival gang members. She was notorious for outrunning law authorities in high-speed chases. Her most famous feat happened during a violent confrontation with a rival gang, where she and her crew were outnumbered and outgunned, but she charged in and defeated opponent after opponent. Rose's aggressiveness and fury won her respect and fear in the underworld, but they also made her a target. Rosie's recklessness and frequent run-ins with the police made her one of the most wanted Hells Angels. Despite several attempts to take her down, Rosie Road Rage Ramirez remained unrepentant and undeterred. Number 3. Anarchy Anderson. Angie was raised in Detroit's grim reality. Angie, an anarchist, began her trip with the Hells Angels in the urban jungle. She fit in with the Hells Angels' defiance and rebelliousness. Her distinct ideology and shameless love for disorder made her anarchic and a force to be reckoned with. Angie was erratic. She was unpredictable. Unpredictability made her a formidable opponent. She was unpredictable and could derail the best-laid plans. In her fights with competing gangs, Angie's unusual tactics and surprise moves left her opponents confused and vulnerable. Angie's law enforcement encounters were frequent. Her ingenuity and resourcefulness often helped her avoid capture. Angie loved the Hells Angels despite her chaos. She saw the club as a family of freedom-loving rebels. Angie Anarchy Anderson flourished in chaos and left an everlasting mark on Hells Angels history. Number 4. Molly Mad Dog McDougal. Molly Mad Dog McDougal used dread as a weapon and a cloak in the motorbike underworld. She proudly displayed her fury and ferocity. Molly was a force of energy born into poverty in rural Georgia. Her hard childhood developed her survival instincts and gave her great drive and stubbornness to back down. These attributes helped her with Hells Angels. Molly, eager to prove herself, took on a local gang generating trouble for the Hells Angels. Molly defeated the entire gang in a vicious fight, earning her the nickname Mad Dog. She went to great lengths to defend her Hells Angels brothers and sisters. Molly's violence regularly got her into issues with the law. She was frequently arrested and on the most wanted list. Despite the odds, Molly managed to evade capture time and again, her cunning and resourcefulness matching her brute strength. One of her most famous exploits involved a high-speed chase with law enforcement that ended with Molly jumping across a collapsed bridge. Molly Mad Dog McDougal was a legend in outlaw motorcycle organizations, and the incident caught on camera only enhanced her reputation as a daredevil. Number 5. Lena Lethal Lawson. Lethal Lawson's reputation was worth gold among the Hells Angels. Lena was a quiet Alaskan woman who took action. However, her actions were premeditated, fatal, and notorious among outlaw bikers. Lena was mechanically gifted from childhood. Lena's intelligence, dedication, and ability to disassemble and reassemble engines before driving made her an asset to Hells Angels. Lena's technical skills made her feared at the club, but it wasn't just that. Her lethal nickname reflected her threat-handling skills. Lena was not a woman of unnecessary violence. She did not revel in chaos or seek out fights. But when the situation called for it, she was a force to be reckoned with, not only averting the ambush, but turning the tables on the rival gang, leaving them scattered and defeated, cementing her reputation as one of the Hells Angels' most dangerous women. Lena's life was controversial. Law enforcement targeted her for her lethality. She avoided arrest despite intensive monitoring. The Hells Angels valued Lena Lethal Lawson's mechanical abilities, lethal efficiency, and ability to avoid law police. Number 6. Fiona Firebrand Fitzpatrick. Growing up in Chicago, Fiona inspired and rebelled. Fiona was a rebel. Her motorbike love and attitude led her to the Hells Angels. Her fierce speeches and demands to defy society earned her the nickname Firebrand. She led gang fights. She inspired her fellow angels to battle fiercely. Fiona organized a series of protests against a citywide motorcycle gang crackdown. These intense, defiant protests conveyed a message to the authorities. So, police frequently targeted her. Fiona kept fighting for the Hells Angels, her fiery soul becoming hotter with each battle. Number 7. Daisy Deathwish Donovan. Daisy Deathwish Donovan, an illegal motorbike rider, had real courage. Her life was recognized for daring and reckless boldness. She was a thrill seeker who attacked problems head-on, which led her to the Hells Angels, a group known for their love of freedom and contempt for danger. Daisy bravely entered the Hells Angels. A rival gang stole the Hells Angels' treasured motorcycle. Daisy, anxious to show herself, sneaked into the opposite gang's territory, collected the bike, and left. She became a Hells Angel after her bold feat. Daisy's daring nature led to many run-ins with the cops. Her audacious deeds often crossed the line. Daisy's resourcefulness and quick thinking saved her many times from captivity. Daisy's most famous achievement was a high-speed chase with law enforcement on the bike she had seized from the rival gang. She evaded capture by making a series of spectacular maneuvers that left the following officers in the dust. Daisy Deathwish Donovan was more than a Hells Angel. She represented boldness and the joy of living life on the brink. Number 8. Nina Nightmare Nicholson. In the world of Hells Angels, where reputation often precedes reality, Nina Nightmare Nicholson was a name that evoked both respect and fear. Known for her ruthless tactics and strategic acumen, she turned every confrontation into a nightmare for her opponents. Growing up in New Orleans' shadowy corners, she was no stranger to life's harsh realities. Her survival instincts and strategic intellect were honed in the bleak environment, and her love of motorcycles led her to Hells Angels. Her strategy helped the Hells Angels beat competing gangs. Her name, Nightmare, reflects her ruthlessness. Nina's ruthlessness made her a target for law authorities, who tracked her acts and movements. Despite the pressure, Nina's clever intellect always found a way out of the Hells Angels world. Nina Nightmare Nicholson was formidable. Her cunning and ruthlessness made her an outlaw motorcycling legend. Number 9. Brenda Breakneck Brooks. In the Hells Angels universe, where speed is respected, Brenda Breakneck Brooks was legendary for her motorbike speed and agility. Brenda, a California native, was a motorbike enthusiast from an early age. Her moniker, Breakneck, reflects her motorcycle skills. In a high-stakes race with a rival gang, Brenda rode faster than her opponents and won a key victory for the Hells Angels. Brenda Breakneck Brooks was formidable. Her speed and agility made her an outlaw motorcycling legend. She wasn't only Hell's Angel, she was a speed devil who lived quickly. Number 10. Tara Tornado Thompson. Tara Tornado Thompson was noted for her whirlwind approach to confrontations and propensity to stir things up in a chaotic world. Tara was a storm bringer. Tara Tornado Thompson was a natural fighter. Her fiery temper and strong will led her to the Hells Angels, a group that embraced her stormy nature and her refusal to back down from a fight. Her moniker, Tornado, reflected her erratic behavior. Tara rallied the Hells Angels and launched a frenzied assault on a rival gang, winning a decisive victory for her club. This bolstered her status as a stormy force. Tara Tornado Thompson was a force to be reckoned with. Her aggressive demeanor and ability to mobilize her fellow Angels made her one of the most feared and respected outlaw motorcycling leaders.
While you might be familiar with notorious gangs like the Yakuza in Japan, MS-13 in El Salvador, or America's Bloods and Crips, did you know that there are also tough all-female gangs out there? These female groups are just as dangerous as the well-known male gangs, and they have been quietly carving out their own territories, leaving a trail of fear and fascination in their wake. But what drives women to join gangs? Are these gangs driven solely by criminal intent? Or is there a deeper socio-economic narrative at play? And most importantly, how do these gangs establish their authority and maintain control amidst fierce competition? And what are the consequences for those who dare to oppose or betray these formidable female-led organizations? Well, let's now explore the world of female crime syndicates, shining a spotlight on the 5 most dangerous female gangs among them. The 40 Elephants. First, we have the 40 Elephants, a notorious gang that operated in the winding streets of London from the late 18th to the early 20th century. Unlike your typical group of street toughs, the 40 Elephants were more like a well-oiled machine, with each member having their own specific role and benefits within the gang based on their skills and experience. Mary Polly Carr was the gang's first leader, who laid the groundwork for the gang's notoriety in London's West End. However, it was under the leadership of Alice Diamond, also known as the Queen of Gangsters, that the gang reached its peak. Alice was infamous for her diamond rings, which she used to scratch her enemies' faces. She led the gang fearlessly, orchestrating daring thefts and organized robberies, primarily targeting high-end shops in the West End. Their operations were slick. They worked in pairs both inside and outside the shops, ready with backup in case they needed to make a quick escape. They even had lawyers on standby to help them out of any legal trouble. And when it came to selling their stolen goods, they had a network of receivers working on commission. The 40 Elephants had style too. Members often dressed in luxurious attire to blend in with their upscale targets. But theft was just one aspect of their criminal activities. The 40 Elephants were also involved in blackmail and selling stolen goods. Their influence stretched far across London, with their primary base being the Elephant and Castle area. What's more, they weren't afraid to use their feminine wiles to their advantage. They would seduce wealthy men only to later extort them or call in favors to evade convictions. Yet despite their tough exterior, the gang knew how to enjoy the finer things in life, throwing extravagant parties and indulging in the lavish lifestyle depicted in movies of the era. While it's unclear how much presence they had in the prison system, some members did serve time for their crimes. But despite their successes, increasing pressure from law enforcement eventually led to their downfall, marking the end of an era for the 40 Elephants. Les Flacas. In the heart of Mexico's intense drug war, there's a group of young and attractive women known as Les Flacas, who have gained a chilling reputation. Instead of traditional roles within the cartels, Les Flacas specializes in assassination. Their unique advantage, their beauty, which acts as a disguise, making it easier for them to get close to their targets undetected. One prominent figure within Las Flacas is Veronica Mireya Moreno Carrion, also known as La Flaca. Initially, she served as a police officer, but her transition into a feared operative highlights the pervasive impact of the drug war on Mexico. Las Flacas' operations span various regions of Mexico, mainly in territories controlled by drug cartels. While Las Flacas don't have specific initiation rituals, their induction often involves gruesome tests of loyalty, such as committing murders. This underscores the brutal nature of their world and the lengths they'll go to prove their allegiance. Despite their youth and seemingly alluring appearance, Las Flacas are not to be underestimated. They are skilled and deadly, carrying out their tasks with precision and efficiency. Their existence serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and dangers of Mexico's drug war, where even beauty can be weaponized for deadly purposes. Their actions contribute to the ongoing turmoil and instability in Mexico, perpetuating a cycle of bloodshed and fear. The Dagger Debs. Let's now talk about the Dagger Debs, an all-female gang that emerged in Los Angeles during the turbulent 1960s. Born as an offshoot of the Silver Daggers, they carved their place in the male-dominated world of street gangs. Led by their formidable gang leaders, they commanded respect and ruled with an iron fist. The Dagger Debs were known for their fearless nature and willingness to use force to protect their territory and interests. They engaged in activities typical of street gangs, such as turf wars, robbery, and extortion, primarily operating in the neighborhoods of Los Angeles. While detailed accounts of their activities are scarce, it's known that, like many gangs of that era, the Dagger Debs likely had initiation rites. These rites could vary from violent tests of courage to committing specific crimes, serving as a way for members to prove their loyalty and commitment to the gang. As time passed, members of the Dagger Debs often outgrew the gang lifestyle and moved on, leading to the eventual dissolution of the group. This pattern of members leaving as they age is common among street gangs, as individuals seek different paths and responsibilities as they mature. Despite their eventual dissolution, the Dagger Debs carved out their own place in the history of Los Angeles street gangs, leaving a legacy that continues to intrigue and fascinate to this day. The Asis. Let's now talk about the influential women who play crucial roles within Japan's Yakuza underworld. These women, known as Asis, have deep connections to the Yakuza through family ties, often as wives, daughters, or sisters of male gangsters. Despite their association with the male-dominated organization, they handle important operational aspects, such as managing finances, laundering money, and facilitating illicit deals. One notable figure among the Asis was Reiko Takashima, who skillfully utilized her network to build a vast criminal enterprise. Involved in various illegal activities like drug trafficking, prostitution, gambling, and extortion, Takashima held sway over Japan's criminal landscape, earning her the title of the Queen of the Underworld. Her connections extended beyond the criminal realm, reaching into the spheres of politics, business, and entertainment, where influential figures sought her protection and favors. Operating primarily in regions where the Yakuza held dominance, such as Tokyo and Osaka, the activities of the Asis were closely intertwined with those of their male counterparts. However, they faced discrimination and exploitation within the patriarchal Yakuza culture and often operated under its shadow. Despite the risks of violence and arrest from rival gangs and law enforcement, these women navigated their way through the criminal underworld with cunning and resilience. The traditions upheld by the Asis mirrored those of the Yakuza, including elaborate tattooing and strict codes of loyalty and honor. These tattoos served as symbols of identity and allegiance to the Yakuza, while also being expressions of art. The codes of loyalty, rooted in principles of duty, jiri, and humanity, ninjo, mandated obedience and respect towards superiors and peers, as well as compassion and generosity towards those in need. The Pink Panthers. Last but not the least, let's talk about the Pink Panthers. This gang mainly consists of women from Serbia and Montenegro, and they're famous worldwide for pulling off daring jewel heists. They've been at it since 1984, and their total stolen loot adds up to a staggering $500 million. These ladies don't just grab jewels on a whim, they plan their heists with precision, hitting up fancy jewelry stores all over the place, especially in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. What's interesting is that they don't have a single leader. Instead, they work as a loose network of smaller groups, each doing their own thing. But even though they're decentralized, they stick to a strict rule of keeping quiet about their crimes. Their daring heists have caught Hollywood's attention, earning them the nickname Pink Panthers. While they haven't been directly linked to any murders, their heists often involve violent clashes. Despite the risks, they continue to operate, remaining a major headache for law enforcement agencies worldwide.